Welcome to A Day in Her Life podcast. I'm your host, Ellie, and I am fascinated by how other women get their days done. Today's episode is a quick mini episode about how I get myself, my house, my relationship ready for the new year. I'll share how my husband and I use the week between Christmas and New Year's to get organized, how we set goals and intentions for ourselves, and then how I set goals and intentions for myself personally. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode, so let's have some fun. So I am a dork and I absolutely love a new year. It gives me that beginning of school vibes where you want to get all new paper products and pencils and get organized. And for me, going into a new year, I always want to feel organized. I want to have my new planner. And I really want to feel like I'm starting the year on the right foot with some good intentions and goals and ideas that I will carry with me until the new year, the next new year. So anyways, let's talk about how I prepare for the New Year's, what I do to set goals and intentions, both personally and with my husband, and how we use the week between Christmas and New Year's to really get set up for success for the coming year. Also, I would love to hear how you prepare for the new year and what you do to get yourself set up for success for a new year. So reach out on Instagram or on adayinherlife.com on the contact page. I would love to hear from you. All right. So using the week between Christmas and New Year's. I've heard this called the in-between week or the cozy week or whatever. For us, this is the week to get shit done when our kids are in school. I realize I'm lucky that my kids are both still in daycare and their daycare is open between Christmas and New Year's. So that is a very large privilege. I'm already trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my son next year when he's in kindergarten because he will have time off of school. But my husband and I use this time to really get stuff done around the house. So this year, as in past years, that meant cleaning out all of our toys. And the way we do that is we round up every single toy from around the house. We go downstairs into our playroom and bring everything up. We bring things out of my son's room. We bring things from all over the house, wherever they may be, and organize them in one place. We put all the Legos together, all the trains together, all the train tracks together, all the Magnetiles together. Because we had a Magnetile bucket in my son's room and then Magnetiles in the playroom, just get everything all together. And that helps keep all the pieces of certain things all together. So like I found pieces of a game downstairs in our playroom, but the game itself was in the basement. So get everything together, organize it, and then see what you have too much of or what the kids aren't using anymore and get rid of what's not serving you. So we donated some stuff. We put it on the free marketplace on the local Facebook. We put some stuff on the curb that was picked up in record time. And we just do a lot of cleaning out of toys. And it feels so good to know that you have all of your Magnetiles in one place, all of your Legos in one place, or if there's multiple places, at least which bins go where. And then set everything up and then communicate that with your kids. And so we really can enforce cleaning up in the proper places with our kids again. And this is something we should probably do quarterly so it won't take as long. But this took us probably 2 hours to do. And it wasn't particularly fun, but it felt so good to do it. This week is also a week that my husband and I just generally do stuff together. So even when we were cleaning out toys, we went to lunch together and had a little date. We don't usually get that opportunity to go out for lunch together during the week because he works out of the home and I'm working in the home. Or if we're both home, we usually have some conflict during lunch. So it was a really nice time to just have together and be able to go out to lunch or clean out all the toys and then go run some errands together and just generally be around each other. I think I mentioned this, like I love going on dates with my husband or like going out to dinner, but I also really like just doing things with him because he's my best friend and we have a lot of fun together. So love that week between Christmas and New Year's for that for us. Also during that week this year, we cleaned out our closets and donated 6 bags of clothes to a local store that supports a service for people in need and donated a bunch of clothes to their career closet for women who are reentering the workforce. And so really love having the opportunity and time to do things without the kids underfoot. And yes, it's totally possible to do these things if the kids were home, but there is something to be said for having the house to yourself and being able to do all of that. So I, as inspired by Christina, who is, I think, episode 2 or 3, went in and tried on everything in my closet. And that was not a small feat, but it was worth it because I got a ton done and tried on things that I hadn't put on my body in probably 4 years or before I even had my first kid, and realized like, I don't love it. And I've been following like, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no. And there were a lot of no's or not fuck yeses. So those are gone. It feels so nice to start my year with a clean closet and a clean drawer and getting those things all organized. It's also an opportunity for us to just like clean the house in general and get things reorganized. And so we had a lot of fun doing it. We did some outdoor work. We did some indoor work. We went out to lunch a few times. And I just really love having that time for us to do stuff together that we don't get a chance to do when the kids are home, because we're multitasking rather than single processing. One of the other things we did this year, and this is something that is continuing from last year, but something that I really enjoy doing, is intention setting and goal setting. And so usually I just do this by myself. So I'll talk a little bit about my own personal process, but my husband and I, we did an annual meeting this year, and it worked really well for us. So the format that we used a new shared note where I put the topics that I wanted him to brainstorm on. So I put a shared note with the format of like, what are your goals for 2024? And then some headers of relationship, travel, financial, work, kids, health, home, and personal. And we each went through and brainstormed separately. And then we had lunch on Friday together, and we talked through all of those goals that we had and made an action item and how to make them as actionable. We made an action list, and then how to make our goals actionable. So what did we need to do to break down any barriers to these goals being achievable? And some of those things are things that I need to do to help him. Some of those things are things that he needs to do to help me. But overall, how do we make those goals SMART? If you're in business, use like the specific, measurable, actionable, results-oriented, and time-bound. So how do we do those things? I really like doing this in kind of a date mode. So it was kind of special rather than just like sitting down at the end of a day. And then I've also seen examples of people doing this. A friend of mine used Chat GPT to generate kind of like a summit day for her and her husband. And it was so cute. The example prompt that she used was, "Hi, Chat GPT. Pretend that you are a life coach and you are preparing for a one-day summit with your client and their spouse to reflect on 2023 and 2024. Your client is ambitious, self-aware, and has a growth mindset. Can you prepare a series of exercises, questions, and activities for the one-day summit? Some things that can be done individually and some things that can be done as a pair." And the output of this was hilarious and also really, really cool. And so, not jumping too far ahead, but one of my goals for 2024 is to understand and use generative AI to help me do things that I can. And so I loved seeing that example, and we'll share that example on the episode notes, but definitely another option for generating an agenda or how to do it. And then so we did that. We had our goals conversation. We know kind of as a team what we're moving towards in 2024. And I will put that at the top of our like working notes app note that we always use to put random things on there that come to mind. And so those will be at the top of that list so that we continue referencing them through the rest of the year. For my own goal setting, I love to review my last year's goals first. So last year, I wrote out intentions and manifestations. Laura Soar A friend of mine, she's a photographer in Charleston and a great follow on Instagram. She talked a lot about writing out manifestations, and these are more like long form. The way that she described it was more long form, fully written out. In 2024, I will do these things. I kind of didn't have a ton of time to do that, so wrote mine in more of a bulleted form by topic, but with specific vision for what that would look like. And I really love looking back on my goals that I set in the beginning of the year and seeing kind of where I am at and what things I need to bring forward into 2024 that I didn't really achieve or that I want to keep working on from 2023. Some goals that I am going to continue in this year, I'll get to that, but some that I think I did a really good job of in this year were making more time for myself, making bets on some things that I find important and I'm excited about. And like basically this podcast is an example of that. And then setting up and kicking off my mom's support group business, which I started in early last year. And I did all of those things and I'm really excited about that. As we go into like what we're leaning into in 2024, budgeting was one of our goals for 2023, but continues to be a big one for 2024. Mint is gone. So we need to figure out a new process for ourselves for managing our budget and tracking our spending. And we're going to use Copilot. It has some flaws with our bank in particular. So trying to figure out how we'll navigate around that. I've also used the Wealth Planner by Money with Katie. And so excited to actually sit down and use that for 2024. I'm going to spend some time this week and this weekend really digging into that and getting that set up for us. And then I have an episode with Meredith Cooney coming up next week, our first interview episode of 2024. And then I have a mini episode coming up next week as well on personal finance with Meredith Cooney, who is Money with Meredith. And she talks a little bit about budgeting. And so really excited to lean into that. I'm hoping to share with you how we are doing with Copilot, the Wealth Planner, and all of that later on this year as we kind of take those steps and get those things rolling. Other things that we're leaning into in 2024 are some intentions that I'm setting for myself. Learning generative AI, as I said, I'm really excited for what that can do for people in general, but how do I leverage that? And so really want to learn more about that. And if you have a great resource that you're using to learn this, I would love for you to share it with me. So either comment on Instagram or send me a message on adayinherlife.com. I would love to hear how you are learning Chat GPT or Bing AI or whatever you're using. Another thing that I really want to work on in 2024 is reminding myself that I'm doing a good job. So negative self-talk, everyone, I think a lot of people do this. I'm not alone in this, but I need to remind myself that I'm doing a good job at whatever I'm doing, even if it doesn't feel that way sometimes. And so being a little softer on myself in 2024. Also, something we're carrying through from 2023 is making more time for our marriage, having more dates and check-ins. And mostly more dates at home. So my husband and I probably go out to dinner once a month, and that is an okay balance for us. But I want to prioritize spending more time having intentional dates at home. If you've followed Hitha for a while, Hitha Palapu on Instagram, she shared a long time ago a kind of check-in agenda for weekly check-ins with your partner. And my husband and I were doing this really regularly. And I think it fell off at some point, probably when during COVID, we moved out of our house and lived with my parents. And so there wasn't really a great time to like have a date check-in with parents around. And I really want to bring this back in 2024. I will share the agenda and that topic with you in the show notes, but really loved that example as a good framework for those conversations. And so want to make sure that my husband and I are doing this at least weekly, because I think if it gets to be biweekly, it's often too far. We are in a phase where at night, my husband often works for a few hours and I work on the podcast or do other things. So a lot of our together time, if we aren't intentional about it, is really just logistics and problem solving with the children rather than talking to each other and dreaming and planning. And so that's something that I really want to be intentional about in 2024 for our marriage. Also, I shared my kind of high level ins and outs on Instagram. I want to be more intentional about my movement. I let that kind of fall off. I love Cara Duvall Pilates. I've talked about that a lot. And I really find that if I do it consistently, my body feels good. And so for me, more movement is more around what does my body need to feel good and less achy and more strong, not really about losing weight or anything like that. Those things can come or go, but feeling good in my body and not having aches and pains all the time is something I really want to prioritize. More dates, as I mentioned, more intentional one-on-one time with my kids. I feel like my husband and I will sometimes take one kid to do something and one kid to do something else, but it's not because we want to do something with them. So I want to plan little day dates, I guess, almost more dates with my kids to make sure that we're prioritizing the one-on-one time that will help them form strong bonds and have things that are really just for them. I mentioned going through my wardrobe. I really want to curate my uniform for 2024. So what are the things that I feel really good in and find those things and kind of latch on. And as Eleanor Leftwich says, buy them in every color. So really excited to lean in a little bit on that and feel better in some of the clothes that I have. I love complimenting a stranger. I feel like I'm always like, oh, where'd you get that? I love that jacket. So I really want to do more of that in 2024. Have some more dinner parties. I don't think I've had any dinner parties since COVID happened. And I love a good dinner party and I want to whip out my china and my silver and my crystal. And I really haven't done that since we've moved into this house almost 3 years ago. And so that is something high on my priorities list for 2024. I also have stitching and bitching on here. There's something magical about sitting down with a friend with a craft and having a glass of wine. I also joined Claire Wiley and Allie Hoffberg's Stitch Club for 2024. So really excited to be in that group and have some accountability and some fun around learning to do more needle pointing, continuing my knitting and all of those old lady crafts that I do, but I love. As I said, reminding myself I'm doing a good job, learning how to use generative AI. This is an election year, so voting is very much in for 2024 because your vote counts regardless of where you are. Leaning into nighttime tea, Hattie Sparks talked about the Fellows kettle. My father-in-law got me one for Christmas, and I am loving having a nighttime tea to cool down and really set the tone for a good night of sleep. And then texting friends to just check in because we all love to be checked in on, and it's important to check in on your friends. So those are really what I am leaning into in 2024. One more is that my husband and I have kind of as a joint goal is making sure that I have more support when he's traveling, because that is going to be more frequent and has been more frequent. And so how do I make sure that I'm set up for success in those weeks when things could get a little more squirrely than usual? And really just excited for the new year. As I said, I love a new year. I'm really excited about it. I also love roundups from the previous year. So I am working on a roundup of all of the books that I read in 2023. It was 122 books. So I am really excited to share that list with you and what were my favorites. And I'm really excited to be back next week with our first full interview episode of the year with Meredith Cooney of Money with Meredith. And then also a mini episode about personal finance and planning and all of that with Meredith also next week. So we have a lot of fun stuff planned for 2024 already, but I would love to hear from you what you would like to see, what you would like to hear, any of that. So reach out to me on adayinherlife.com. Send me a message on Instagram. I would love to hear what you would love to hear in 2024 for A Day in Her Life. Thanks for being here for this mini episode about how I set myself up for the new year. And I'm really excited about what 2024 has in store for us. So I hope you all have a great day.